Strengths is an assessment that most people have, well, a lot of people have taken. 35 million people around the world have taken this assessment, but I would bet less than 100,000 of them could actually tell you what their top 5 strengths are. Most people do it because work told them to, school told them to. They took it, they looked at it, they said, "Oh, that looks really cool," and then they stuck it away on a shelf or put it in a drawer. As my friend G likes to say, called it shelf help. But really, the Clifton Strengths assessment measures 34 innate talents, and those talents are ways you can't help but be, is how I like to describe them. So they're your motivations, your needs, how you like to contribute. And they're words like strategic or relator or learner, right? Or futuristic. Like all of those words tell me something about you, which I know you have experience with that now.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get the prognosis and the full walkthrough with you on our previous call, which was
Yeah.
very, very generous and a lovely experience.
Yeah. So I came across this assessment back when it was first released, and so I took it when 2002, maybe 2003. I think I took it in 2002 though. I'm almost sure of it. And then I was hooked. It was like I got a user's manual for myself. And it wasn't so much that it told me something I didn't know, but it gave me a way to explain to other people why I do what I do or why I do it the way that I do it, right? And I think if you don't have that language, those 34 words, we tend to judge everyone or look at the world through our own filters, which are our talents. And so we assume everybody knows what I know, can do what I do, and that I'm not particularly special. And that's just absolutely not true.
Yeah, I mean, because we're all special in our own ways, right? We all have a different makeup of these things, but it's easy to break it down and then generalize people into the categories to kind of understand them better and see what makes them tick. Like we have had quite a bit of talk during our last call, about how to be able to communicate with people based off what their strengths are and understanding like their personality type and how, they might not like look at the world the same way.
Right, right, exactly. And, we can think we know ourselves pretty well, but when you have that language, there's still a light bulb that goes, oh, like, yes, I do that. And I do that a lot. And oh, people kind of complain when I do that thing. And like, I didn't know why it was such a big deal. And right, you go, oh, now I get it. Now I know why that happens.
You said you did your first test in 2003.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because also one of the things I love about you is, you're an explorer, you're a traveler. Like you were telling me, I mean, you just recently got back from, you were living in Peru before, right?
I
And
was
then
in
you
Peru
lived
for
in,
11 years and then Mexico
yeah,
City for 3 years. And now
yeah,
I'm back in the US living in Michigan, which is my home state, but I never actually lived here except for 2 years in college. So I moved from a city of 22 million people to a city of 2,000 people.
yeah.
I'm in a
Just a
tiny
bit of
little
a
village.
change. So, I mean, how did like this all incorporate together? How did your, learning of Clifton strengths, like, how did that tie into your career at the time? And where does your, your travel and your decision to have this change of lifestyle, like, how did these all intersect in your story?
Yeah, it's funny. I got very stuck on strengths early on when I was back working at Yum Brands. In fact, it was a dear friend who turned me on to it, got me down the path in more ways than one, and unfortunately passed away just a couple of weeks ago, which makes me very sad because was absolutely the reason I'm on this path and journey. And in 2007, I left Yum because I wasn't growing. I wanted to do something different. I became an entrepreneur. I always use strengths, and I have always been the person that people come to for advice. So like, after I did the strengths assessment, anytime somebody would come to me and be like, Joe, I need to figure out what to do about X. And I would go, oh, here, read this book, take this test, let's talk. Here, read this book, take this test, let's talk. So, like, I've been using strengths forever because it just made so much sense to me. And then, I dabbled around here and there, but then in 2014, um, I was going through an exploration. I want to say like we were looking to see if I was going to have a cancer diagnosis or not. So I was going through the biopsies and all the stuff. So I had that like week of, oh my goodness. And my son was only a year old. And I had I had a business I was happy with. I was living in Peru already, but I just wasn't happy. And I'd been re-exploring strengths, and I thought, I really want to use strengths more often. I don't know how, I don't know what that really means, but I want to use strengths more often. And so I started getting back into strengths 2015. Sorry, that was 2015 that I had the cancer scare. It was 2014 that I started looking at strengths again because I just wasn't happy. So I was trying to figure myself out and what I really wanted to do. And in 2015, I had that little cancer scare, which fortunately everything was negative, all was good. But that week of self-reflection was, what do I really want? What am I really good at? What is the thing I keep going back to? And that thing was strengths. And I was like, okay, I don't know what to do with this still, right? Like, can I be a coach? What does that look like? Could I get a job at Gallup? Like, so I got on Gallup's website. I started looking for jobs. I looked at all these things. I got on a phone call with someone. I was like, oh, it looks like you guys are certifying people to be strengths coaches now. Like, what does that look like? And they said, well, it costs this much and we do these things. And I was like, oh, and I was like, well, I'm down in Peru. And they went, oh, you're in Peru. Do you speak Spanish? And I said, yes. And they said, great. In 8 weeks, we have our first Spanish certification in Mexico City. Are you interested? I was like, yes. So do you have a payment plan? Like, how does this work? What do I need to do? And they were like, nope, no payment plan. You just got to pay. And this is where it's going to be. And we need the money at least 2 weeks before you get here. And I was just like, okay, I have 6 weeks to raise a whole bunch of money and figure out how I'm going to get to Mexico City. And I did it. And so I certified in the first Spanish speaking cohort. And I ended up getting clients in Mexico City, which is what I was ready to leave Peru. I went to Mexico City because it was a nice bridge between the US and sort of the rest of the global market I'd been working with. And I got to use my Spanish and had some contacts there. But I don't know, just Mexico City was hard. It wasn't going the way I had hoped. And my business was taking off, but still there was that missing piece. And since coming back to Michigan, like everything with what I've wanted to do with strengths has just been falling into place. So.
Yeah. And you were also the first person to be certified in Peru, were you not? You were Gallup's first. Yeah, you got that prestigious title.
I was one of the first 300 people. I was in the list of the first 300 people to ever get certified by Gallup when I actually did it. First group of Spanish speakers to go through the Spanish program. So there were 8 of us, and I was the first one in Peru. Yeah.
Okay. And when you went and did that, like, I mean, you said you'd always resonated with you, but was there any like moment where you're like, "This is my thing"? You know what I mean? Like, it was just the first time you took it, or
it really
did you
was
ever
the
have
first
that
time I took it.
eureka?
It's so funny because like right after I got certified, I got a chance to do a TED Talk in Peru, and I got to talk about strengths, and I had to do it in Spanish. I was like, you talk about nerve-wracking, but it really was. I mean, when I took the assessment the first time, it was such an eye-opening experience for me because I was always very outgoing. I got along with people really easily. I had no problem talking to anyone. I was somebody who smiled at people all the time. People thought I was really flirtatious. I was not trying to flirt most of the time. And when I was trying to flirt, I was failing miserably. But it was, but it was just that. And then I'm like, oh, I have woo number 1, which is that winning others over talent. I'm like, oh, and I have positivity and I have communication. Like, I can't help myself. All I want to do is like talk to people and make them feel welcome and have a great experience. And like everything that I was that made me so happy was wrapped up right there. And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. It's like your purpose is wrapped up in there, but you got to kind of decode it a little bit. Like it's not obvious. There's a little decoding
You said also,
that goes with it.
and you said last time when we were talking that like when you were in Peru that you had to shut part of yourself down, no? Like the woo aspect.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like? And like being able to recognize that as well. Is that when you recognized that, was that part of the reason that you decided to leave Peru?
It was because we have 34 talents, right? Only 10 of 15 of which are dominant for us. And then our bottom five are often like a blind spot or, a way that's just not motivating for us. It doesn't mean we couldn't do it, but it's just not the way we want to do things. And I will tell you, like, I felt like I had to shut down so much of who I was in Peru, and it felt like I was living in my bottom five all the time with what people expected. And it was exhausting. And I think people think they have to change and shift for what other people expect. And so that's why I really focused on personal branding. And I look at personal branding not from like, how do you market yourself and your business, but just how do you show up in the world, what's meaningful to you. And if you don't let people know who you are, they will decide for you. And they are likely going to decide wrongly for you. But when you're young and impressionable, you trust those people to want the best for you. And so you push yourself in a direction that is not really aligned, but you don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if we get this language even earlier, we have a much better chance of getting into a zone that really excites us, energizes us, and keeps us going when things get hard than if we don't.
Right. You can more easily identify the things that are actually in line with your personality type. But you have to also be careful, right? Because, I mean, you were explaining this to me in our last talk, how, for example, if you have communicator in your top five, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good communicator, right?
Right.
It means that, like, maybe you could explain that to the audience exactly what that means to
Right.
be a communicator but not be able to communicate.
Yes. So communication is a talent, right? And it's so funny because when I was at Yum, side note, sorry, I have ideation too, so I'll take a tangent. But there's I worked with a communications group, like the whole communications group at Yum Brands. And at the time we were only doing top five, which is extremely limiting. I don't recommend it. But at the time we could only do the top five. And no one in the communications department had communication as a talent. And they were like, how are we doing our job? Like, none of us have communication. That can't be right. And I'm like, no. It's not a skill. It's a talent. And the talent of communication means you like words. You use words to convey ideas. Words are important to you. We are verbal processors. Communication cannot fully think through a problem, a strategy, an idea without at some point expressing it or explaining it to someone else. And it's in that verbalization of the thought process that there is oh, that's easy. I can totally figure that out. Like, you don't even need the other person. You just have to hear it. And it's not hearing it, it's the expressing of it. And so if you're talking to me and telling me a story, I'm likely to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you because I'm going to show you that I understand you by finishing your sentence. I'm not actually trying to cut you off. I'm trying to show you that I actually get what you're saying, because communication needs to be understood so badly that it wants to show other people that it understands, and that's how it knows to do it. It's not the nicest thing. It's not the best manners. So I do this a lot. No, you just keep talking. I'll wait.
Yeah.
Right?
I have a friend that gets really mad at me for, because we also found out that I have communication in mind, and it gets really mad at me for always needing to butt in.
And it's like we can't help ourselves. It's like it's how we're telling someone, I get you, I understand, I see where you're going.
Exactly.
And we want to relate too. So like if you're telling me a story, I'm going to tell you another story and I'm not trying to take this limelight away from you. I'm trying to go, oh my gosh, I totally get that. Look, I had a similar experience. I can totally understand what you're talking about because I have another story that's really just like your story, right? I'm sharing a story because I want to tell, we have similar stories. Isn't that cool? It's not about
100%.
taking the limelight, but it feels like that to someone else. And knowing that allows us to make better modifications. Go, oh my God, your story made me absolutely think of this moment that I went through something really similar. Can I share that story with you? Do you mind? Right? So I'm getting permission versus just, bleh.
Yeah. But this kind of idea of, like communication not really meaning that you're necessarily a good communicator, like, does this ever become confusing for some of the people taking the test? Like, is it something that happens often, or what, like, how often do people misunderstand
It
something like
does.
this? And what are other examples?
It does. And I think, the challenge is in like what we understand about the word from a dictionary definition versus what that actually means as a talent, right? Another one that is often like misunderstood is empathy as a talent. So a skill is being able to do something you learn, knowledge, test, that kind of thing. I can't test your empathy, right? But I can test a skill. But empathy as a talent is someone who truly is an emotional and energy sponge. They can't help themselves. They are taking it all in. They feel all the things. They're often really emotionally intelligent. Now, people have often said, "God, you're so empathetic," and I'm like, I am not. And I'm really not. Like, empathy is like 28 for me. Like, I am not. And I have tons of friends with empathy, which is why I know I don't have it as a talent. I am cognitively empathetic. I can appreciate where you've been. I can understand your story. I can possibly relate to it through a similar story. But I am not feeling your feels and I am not taking on your energy. And I don't even necessarily think about it. Like, and I feel badly. I even apologized to my girlfriend yesterday because I was like, I saw you were in your car and I knew you were having car problems and it didn't even occur to me to ask you if you were okay and if your car was working. And I was like, was that your car or your dad's car? She's like, oh, it was my dad's car. Still not working. I went, oh. I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't ask you. Like, God, like, and that's why I know I don't have empathy, because like somebody with empathy,
Yeah.
that would have been the first thing out of their mouth. Are you okay? Did
Yeah.
you get your
Yeah.
car fixed? Like, they couldn't help themselves.
But you ask because you know it's the right thing to do, not because like you're sitting there actually feeling the
Right.
emotions of the other person, like
Right.
you were saying.
So I have to be really cognizant and aware that, like, I probably should have started off with, how was your day? How are you feeling? Because I don't have a lot of relationship building talents and I don't have empathy. So that is not the first thing I do. I can do it, but it is not my default, right? And knowing what your default is really important.
I think the whole viewership here is really gonna is able to see like you have a very deep understanding of this versus the the average person. And I mean, this is what you built your business around, right? You have a course called or a program called The Language of You, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
using strength as a second language.
Yes.
So you also said you wrote a book series, was that correct?
Yes, I did. I've
Yeah.
written 3 books under the Practical Strength series. I'm working on a fourth one right now, but they're essentially glossaries, right? They're like $11 and they're priced in that way, like across the globe. So they're accessible in any market on Amazon, but they're really glossaries. So if you have communication, it's how does your communication serve you as a parent? How does it get in the way? How does your communication serve you as a communication style? Like, what does that mean in your communication style? How do people need to communicate with you because of that? How do you frustrate other people because of that? And then the career success one, which is where you will thrive, how to look for work, how to talk about it and show your value, and then how to succeed the first few weeks on the job. Um, and really using your talents to create a set of success for you, but to also teach you when maybe they're not shining in the best light, right? Because our weaknesses are actually in our talents. It's not lack of a talent, it's how we're applying the talent that defines a weakness or a strength.
So if someone does your course, your program,
Mm-hmm.
like versus if they've, just taken the test. So like what is the biggest difference somebody would see like between, knowing what their strengths are and like really like being able to embody that and like use it as a way of framing their actions and living?
The most common response I get when somebody finishes the language of you, and I've been doing this for 10 years now, in lots of different capacities. The thing I most often hear when people go through it is, I finally feel like I have permission to be me. And I mean, gosh, isn't that a beautiful thing? To feel like you have permission to be who you were meant to be? Because we're struggling so often to be what we think people need us to be or want us to be, that we don't actually allow ourselves the possibility that who we are is definitely enough and is exactly who we need to be. So I lean into the "you're weird is wonderful" kind of thing. Like, whatever that weird thing is about you is exactly the thing you need to be like shining your light on. So strengths will help you find that. And when we do the language of you, it's set up as a branding course, but like I said, it's branding on a macro level, not like it, and I often apply it to your business. Like, how are you messaging yourself to attract the person you most want to work with? Because you're only going to keep showing up if you get the people you love working with. If you're showing up for people you don't like very much, that's not really helpful. You're going to feel like a failure and you're not going to keep going. So who is it you love? And you only know that by understanding who you are and like what you want in your sphere. So we match talents to skills to values and motivations. And then we come out with a very round sort of legacy piece that's kind of like a vision piece of what impact you want to have. And so, you know, at your 90th birthday, what would you want people to say about you? What do you want people to remember and celebrate about you? And it wraps all of those things together in kind of a nice little package. And then you've left with this like glossary of you. So when you need to talk about who you are or express your value to someone or show up for a performance review or apply for a job, you've got a tidy little package of all these really awesome things you can say about yourself and know exactly why those things are awesome about you.
And I noticed when we were talking in our last chat, I mean, it's not just about work as well. It's also about your interpersonal relationships, right? Like you were telling me quite an interesting story about your son going to kindergarten and your husband at the time trying
Oh,
to
yeah.
choose the kindergarten based on like his chances on getting into a university.
Yes.
Like
Yes. Like he needed the
like
statistics and what is the success rate and what is the information that says that this kindergarten leads him down the path to get into the best universities. And I'm just like, it is kindergarten. Like, why are we looking at that? And he was like, well, I need the research and I need the statistics and I need to find the rankings. And I was just like, no, you need that. I need to go to the school and see if all the kids are playing and having fun and the teachers are nice and like, what's the experience feel like? Like, you need the stats. Stats lie. Experience does not. So I'm going to go for the experience. Here's a couple of databases or like websites you can find what you're looking for, but I'm not doing the research for you because I don't care.
yeah, but you're kind of mentioning to me as well that like, using this like the Clifton Strengths assessment and like you're using your understanding, it's like, okay, because he has these different like attributes, like this is why he thinks this way, and like if you're
Yeah,
even able to like use it as a way of improving your relationships as well, outside
oh,
of the workplace, just because okay,
absolutely.
you can have that empathy, like even if it's just the cognitive empathy you talked about for why someone's acting in a certain way when it seems ridiculous to you because you don't have the same viewpoint.
Yeah, you can look at something and you're like, what? Or, you know, we see people and we're like, you're so annoying, right? Like that thing they did, they're so annoying. It just, ugh. And it's because they're not doing it like us. They're not doing it the way. And I always describe it as toilet paper. People are like, what? And I'm like, are you over or under? Are you over or under, Monty? How do you like your toilet paper? Over or under?
I mean, there's only one way.
Better be
It's over.
over. Like, it better
Yeah,
be over, right?
there's only one way.
See, anybody that says it's over, almost everyone will be like, "There's only one way." I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's only right.
You'd have
If
to be a
you're an under
psychopath to
person,
go under.
yeah.
Like, what do you
If you're an
mean?
under person, you sort of go like, "I like it under. I think it's fine." Over people like it is over. Like this is how we do
I, I
things.
I will be in a stranger's bathroom and I will fix it. You know what I mean? Like I won't leave that bathroom without putting the toilet paper in the
Yes,
correct
over
position.
people are like that, right? And like, this is funny because I used to be that person. I would totally go in because I was like, I am sure it was an oversight. They were in a hurry. They didn't realize what they were doing. Allow me the kindness of turning their toilet paper over for them, right? And at the end of the day, I'm sitting there, I'm in my girlfriend's house, and she comes out, she goes, did you turn my toilet paper over? And I was like, okay, well, there's only two of
Hell
us here,
yeah.
so that was probably me. Yes. Why? She goes, I have a cat. I was like, I have a cat. And she goes, yes, but I have a cat who does this. And so if I
Right.
leave it over, I end up with no toilet paper. And I went,
Right.
so there might actually be a reason to put it under. That had not occurred to me because my cat doesn't do that. That's kind of like strengths, right? In a strengths relationship, it is never not going to annoy me that your toilet paper is under. It's never not going to annoy me. But I have learned that there might be a reason for it to be under. So if we're in a relationship, we either have separate bathrooms so you can have your under and I can have my over and I don't have to worry about your toilet paper. Doesn't impact me. Or if we're sharing a bathroom, it's going vertical on the counter because I'm not going to worry about it. Right? Like, I'm not going to have that argument. And at the end of the day, it's fine. There's toilet paper. We don't have to worry about which direction it's going. But it's never going to be under for me because I can't do it. Right? And the under person probably doesn't care all that much. They're like, fine, vertical on the counter. I don't care, whatever.
That's just our special type of weird, right?
It is. And it's funny. And almost everybody can relate to that. Right? But talents are the same way. So my ex, who had analytical and intellection, we'd go to a movie and he'd get a ticket and he'd look at the ticket and he'd be like, mm-hmm. And he'd hand it to me and go, what movie theater are we in? And I would look at it and I would go, Theater 8. And he would go, okay. And we'd go get popcorn. And he'd hand the ticket to the person at the popcorn counter and be like, excuse me, what theater are we in? And they'd be like, you're in Theater 8, sir. And he would go, thank you. And I'm like, do you not think I can read? Like, what is that about? You saw it, I saw it. And then he's like taking another guy with another vest and he goes, excuse me, could you tell me what theater we're in? I'm like, how many people need to read this theater ticket? Like,
yeah, he needs to validate it with 100 people.
You're an intelligent human being. I am an intelligent human being. I can appreciate you validating your own observation, but how many people? And before I knew his talents, I'm like, do you just think I'm dumb? Like, why are you even asking me if you're going to ask 3 other people?
Yeah.
But he needs proof.
Does he have like a problem with his eyes or something?
He has analytical and intellection and deliberative. And so he needs to validate, revalidate, and validate again before he can ever assume something is absolutely what he thinks it is.
You've worked with a lot of people in like 23 countries. Has there been ever like a person that was especially an interesting mix of strengths? Or
Yes. Oh God, I love that you asked that question. Yes, I work with a Hispanic leadership program for ministers in the US. It's a national program for the Church of God. And and I was working with this gentleman once from El Salvador, and he had empathy number 1, analytical number 2. And then he had deliberative and adaptability. And I was just like, okay. I said, so we're going to have a session and I'm going to tell you what I know about these talents. And then I'm going to ask you a lot of questions because you have a very unusual set of talents that I have not seen together before. And I need to understand this. But especially, so I told him the story about empathy because yes, men have empathy as a talent, whether what we think is happening in the world. There's a lot of empathy. But what's really interesting is there is a prison in the U.S. that does reintegration programs for prisoners that are reintegrating back into the workforce and into regular life. They use strengths. And the number 1 most frequent talent among male inmates in this program is empathy. And people go, but wait, what? Like, they're in prison. Like, how do they have empathy? Well, when empathy isn't being fed, it doesn't get to express itself. It doesn't get to show emotion. It is constantly shoving and shoving and shoving. And what does it do when you shove? You explode. And if we think about our populations that are in prisons in the U.S., it's a black-brown population. It's a poor population. It's people that often did not have father's presence or come from single-parent households or were told to man up all the time. They weren't given the space to have emotions because there just wasn't time for it, right? So it makes a lot of sense. So I'm talking to this lovely gentleman from El Salvador who's a minister. And I tell him this fact and he goes, oh, that makes sense. I was in prison for 3 years. I was just like, Wait, what? Okay. Cool. I want to know more about that. And then analytical. And I said, analytical is somebody who needs proof. They're pretty impartial, but they need proof. They don't take anything as fact. And I'm like, I've never seen analytical in the faith space like this, and especially like with empathy and analytical. I'm like, what kind of proof do you have that supports your faith? Like, I'm curious what counts as proof for you. And he goes, oh, that's easy. He goes, you probably won't believe me, but when I was in prison, which was where I discovered, Christ, I had a Bible And whenever I was really struggling, I would demand that God give me proof of his existence, of his care for me, of whatever I was dealing with at the time. And he said, and my Bible pages would flicker and it would land on a passage and I would read that passage and it was 100% the answer I needed. So I got my proof. He said, because it
What the
happened
hell?
multiple times. And I was just like, cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that makes sense, right? So it was just, it
Yeah.
was fascinating to deal with that. And then deliberative and adaptability. Deliberative, like, doesn't do anything because they're so concerned about obstacles that they don't move. But adaptability is like, go with the flow. Whatever happens, happens. I'm like, how do you have deliberative and adaptability? Like, that's fascinating to me. So you don't, so those are like talent pairs that you don't see frequently together, let alone like that in a top five. It was crazy, but it was so much fun. And that's where I learn and I get those patterns and those things because for me, what happens is then I will meet someone else that has empathy and analytical, and then I'll weirdly meet somebody else that has empathy and analytical. And I'll be like, all right, I'm getting a lesson here. Something's happening, right? Like, I don't know why I get all this. And the other
Yeah.
fun thing is the number of people I've had that have told me they hate their talents. I get on a call and go, so what'd you think about the test? And they're like, ugh, this is everything that's wrong with me. And I'm like, whoa, reframe. All right, let's walk through this. And at the end of it, they see it for the positive. But it's been interesting when I get people that say they hate them.
Hmm.
Because that happens too. Happens very infrequently, but it does happen.
Yeah. Do you, if you're doing like an onboarding and you're doing like just your program with someone, like, do you adapt it ever, or do you have the same process for each person? Like, if someone's just like kind of normal Joe Blow versus someone who's got these interesting mixes, or a person that is kind of down about their what their talents are, like, do you adapt the process, or what does the general process look like in terms of your delivery?
So my process is a little bit different than most coaches because coaching in general is about reflection. So if we had had a typical coaching session with you, I would have been like, so what was the most interesting thing you found about your talents? What was the most interesting thing that stood out in your report? How does that show up for you? And I would just ask you a lot of questions. And so you're getting an understanding, but you're still speaking to it without a lot of knowledge of what the talent actually means. So my first session is kind of a cross between coaching and teaching where I'm going to walk you through the talents. I'm going to give you the definition. I'm going to tell you about patterns and quirks and cool things I know about this talent that I've seen throughout the years. And then I'm going to say, does any of this resonate with you? Do you find yourself in any of what I just said? What stuck out? And so I will then get you to draw out and like share what you know based on what I said. And then when we can go back and look at the report later. But I always start with a little bit of teaching because I feel like if I were to hand you a menu at a Chinese restaurant and it's mostly Chinese, and underneath every description with the Chinese symbols is something that just says like fish with vegetables, chicken and rice, you'd be like,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I know what chicken is and I know what rice is, but like I don't know what that dish is going to look like.
Yeah, yeah, like, give me more
I
information,
need a
please.
little more than that,
Yeah.
right? Like, or it might be like chicken and rice with a sweet sauce. Sweet how? Like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? So I like to start with a little bit of teaching. Now, if someone says they hate them, obviously I start with what makes you say that? Where is that coming from? Help me understand what feels uncomfortable for you or wrong. And so we'll address that and and based on what they tell me, I'm like, huh, okay. So what I am sensing is this and this has happened, or perhaps this happened in your past, and they'll be like, oh. I go, okay. So I'm going to talk to you about the strengths now, and we're going to kind of try to reframe through this process. And we'll do that. But essentially the process is the same, but everybody is different. So my ability to flex with people in the session, if they need more coaching, I can be a coach. If they need more direction and advice, I can be more direction and advice. Like I meet people where they are to help them get the most out of the session.
And when you're doing one of these sessions, like, how does that also transmit to your mission? Because when we talked before, you kind of mentioned having the Clifton Strengths as a second language. You know, you wanted it to become like a generational thing. Like
Yes.
you want it just
I want
to
to
be
build a
something
strengths
that
based
permeates.
generation. I want it to be a thread. I want it to be a language that we all speak and understand. And so I tell everybody when they do this, usually, like if I'm working with them for a while, I'm like, start creating your own glossary, like an understanding. And even in my facilitator guides, every one of the talents has like a nickname. So, like, analytical is the proof seeker, like, communication is the storyteller, right? Like, so everything's got. So then when you encounter that in someone, you go, oh, they're asking for a bunch of proof. They're being very doubtful. I bet they have analytical. So let me prepare myself for what an analytical person needs. Like, so just a fifth grade vocabulary understanding is enough. I believe. I really do. You don't have to go into the depth that I know it. As long as you are paying attention and taking it in and understand the very basic understanding of each word, we will get along so much better in the world. I don't mean we're going to love each other. It's not a kumbaya movement. It's just, oh, I get why you're doing that now. Not my thing, not my way, but you mean well, and I'm just going to let it alone, right? There's room for all of us. And I kind of say, like, I would love to rebuild the village. We keep talking about trying to bring the village back. Where did the village go? What do we do with the village? I'm like, well, we need more than bricklayers to build a village. So if we keep building all of these social silos where we're only with people just like us, we can't build a village because we don't have all the people. We need to recognize that differences are an advantage and understand how to make the most of those differences so that we can come back together in a more successful way.
Is this what drove you to create the Practical Strengths Foundation?
It was that, and it was also because, I've worked with so many people that even people that have certified with Gallup can't name their top five off the top of their head. And so when I ask somebody, oh, you took the assessment, do you remember what they were? And people are like, no. And I'm like, yeah, that's the answer I expected. Like, you're not surprising me. Because most people do it when they're forced to do it. Work asked them to do it. They had to do it for school. They had to do it for a project. But then they never go, they do it, they look at it, and they never go back to it. I also think it looks really daunting. It looks really hard and complex. And I just want to take that out of it because if we want strengths to be a language, you can't require a translator every time you want a conversation. So the books were meant to distill it down into something understandable in a space that you are looking for help, that you could read it and go, oh, this is helpful. I could actually try that or do that.
Just so for the viewership, do you think you could maybe like explain a little bit about the Practical Strengths Foundation?
Yeah, so we're right now we are an L3C, which we are a purpose over profit organization, and we are looking to build our actually like our nonprofit base so that we can be a double bottom line organization. Because one of the things that keeps people from doing strengths at a grander scale is the cost. And so we're trying to figure out how we can offset some of that cost. And I have people in my circle who are a little irritated by that idea because they don't think you should have to create a foundation to offset a for profit organization. But we have to come up with some answer, right? Like we have to come up with some answer. And maybe my answer isn't the right one, but our goal is to really help startups, entrepreneurs, purpose driven organizations, and educational institutions, the people that want to have an impact but don't always have the budget or the manpower. We want them to be able to do this at a very functional and accessible level where it's not about breaking the bank and it's about getting sticky, sustainable results.
Yeah. So like for like an entrepreneur that would be maybe listening now and maybe could take advantage of your nonprofit. Like, I mean, what would you say to them, like, in terms of this being more than just like a personality test and like what they're missing? How can this also be used to maybe put the team together? Because like you and me share 4 out of 5 of our top five, but we're still very different in
We're
terms of our
extremely
approach.
different.
So like, you can use this as a founder that's coming in to kind of identify the teams, how you could fill a team, but at the same time you need to have a deep knowledge of it because it's not just like make sure we cover all the different strengths, you
Well,
know?
but this is why we train people within the organization, right? Like we certify people within an organization so that there is a core team of people that understand this and can help it spread and help teach it and help other people do it. So it's really important to do that. So that's why I do start with like a teaching format more than anything else, but I also teach through doing. So doing the language of strengths with a group of leaders, right, is part of the training process so that they have the experience and the self-discovery for themselves, but they can also turn around immediately and use that same thing with an employee, with another leader, with a student, right? Like it, they can, two people have gone through it, they can compare their answers and their results and learn about each other. Like there's so many ways to use it. But I also have like a leadership profile that I do, and I've worked with leaders and managers where I will sit down and walk through every single person on the team, and a leader can say, this is what I think they do really, really well. This is what I have a challenge with that person. This is what I hope for this person. What do I need to do? And I'll spend 15, 20 minutes going, well, they have these talents. So you're going to need to ask these questions. You're going to need to do this for motivation for them. They're likely going to want this. Here's 5 questions to ask them the next time you have a one-on-one so that you can find out if your desire for them and what they want is in alignment and how to get it out of them. And they're like, and I can remember I've had these conversations off the cuff many times. And one of the managers I was working with, and this is how the whole thing started, is I had like 3 different managers like, oh my God, I have this person and I just hired them and I thought they were perfect for the position and they know all the stuff and they have all the skills and they are just not performing the way I thought they were going to perform. Like I am not getting what I wanted out of them. And I'm like, okay, hold on. And like in the case of one, this person had like self-assurance and strategic and I think activate. I was like, you are a super autonomous, thoughtful, off the cuff, absorb a lot, take off, do your thing person. You don't need anybody telling you where to go. You just need a destination and you will figure everything else out. The person you hired, while technically has the skills to do everything you're asking them to do, you just told them you need to get to Vegas, figure it out. And they're like, but how much money do I have? Am I going in a car? Am I going in a plane? Do I get to sleep along the way? How many days am I going to be there? What do I need to dress for? Like they need a lot more information because they've got learner and deliberative and analytical. And like, you've just told them to figure the whole thing out themselves. And they're like, there is too much missing information. I cannot do this without the information. Now, if there's a recurring pattern and like they understand that you allow them to fill in some of those blanks and they get the trust that you trust them to fill in those blanks, you will get a more autonomous employee over a little bit of time. But for the first 3 to 6 months, you've got to set a pattern up of trust, of allowing them to fail if they get the information wrong or giving them the information they need so that they can execute at a higher level. Otherwise, you're setting them up for failure. And they're like, oh, like, so ask these 3 questions the next time you talk to them. They're like, okay. And they come back and they're like, oh my God, Joe, that was so genius. Like, we got, like, that was perfect. That's why strengths, right? Like,
I know.
Well, but I mean, and it is a little, I am so awesome, but that is the power of strengths. And it just bothers me that we dismiss something that has so much power and we think it's just another assessment. And it's not. It's just not. So yeah, I'm a little passionate about it.
I mean, that's what makes you so good at it. It's that it's something you care about and you believe in, and you know you can see the way that it works magic with people. If someone does want to, you know, work that magic with you, where can they find you? You want to give a shout out to your websites and
Yeah.
you know, your bookstores on Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, anybody can link with me on LinkedIn. I'm LinkedIn. It's /Joe Self. You'll find me pretty easily. The website is practicalstrengths.org. That's the best way to find out what we're doing with organizations. I also have discoverjoeself.com. So if you're totally new to strengths and you have no idea what I'm talking about and you want to like get in a little lower, check out the discoverjoeself.com and we can get you started. But I'm also offering now 3 sessions a month that I open up on the first of every month of a 60 for 60, which is the assessment costs $60. But if someone's willing to invest $60 in themselves, I'm willing to invest the 60 minutes as a gift for a session to just see if somebody wants to go down the path any further.
Incredible. And do you want to share any words of wisdom as a closing point here? Is something that you know would maybe share with someone in that 60-minute session. Business advice, or something to do with the strengths.
I think taking the strengths is worth doing. I think it's really important to know that no matter how much other people think they know you and you can rely on them to help you figure out who you are, they're always going to get a little bit of it wrong. Because if they don't have this language, they can only judge you based on what they know of themselves and what they know of you. But they're using what they know of you. So if I think there was a kid who had achiever, competition, maximizer, learner, he had competed and won every single category at the blue ribbon level in the 4-H fair every year. So by the time he was 16, he didn't compete anymore. He quit the 4-H. And everybody's like, this kid quits everything he does. He just quits. And I'm like, dude, he reached the maximum level. There was nowhere else to go. He needs new adventures.
Yeah.
He's won a blue ribbon in literally every single category he could enter. Yeah. He's not quitting. He's looking for the next challenge.
Yeah, he completed and now he's starting again.
But everyone around him thought he was a quitter and lazy.
How the hell could you say that if you complete everything?
Because they're judging it through their filter. Because if you're good at something, you stick at it and you keep going and you just do it. You win the blue ribbon in the same category every single year. That is not what was going to make him happy.
That sounds boring to me.
Yeah, he needed a new challenge and he was going to stick with it until he reached the pinnacle. And once you don't get to the top of Mount Everest and think, I can't wait to do that again next week. You look for the next mountain.
Yeah.
No one's repeat climbing Mount Everest.
I mean, there's probably one or two.
I mean, one or two, but they're not like, did I do this in 6 seconds less than last time? I mean, like, that's just not what most people are doing, right? They're looking for the next mountain and the next challenge, and what, like, climbing the mountain might be the same thing, but the trek up every mountain is going to be different. The conditions are going to be different, so people need that. So I think when you're doing this, it's just really important to understand that no matter how much you think somebody else knows you, they're never going to know you like you know you. And the strengths assessment isn't going to tell you something you don't know about yourself, but it's going to give you confirmation and validation of who you are and the confidence to put that forth more often versus hiding it.
And okay, now that you know you through the strengths assessment and all these years that you've had to be able to coach people, if you were able to talk to the younger you, before you started this big adventure to Peru, before you, started your first business, before you became certified in strengths, what advice would you give yourself? And it doesn't need to be related to strengths or anything. Just like, what word of wisdom would you say to yourself as you're starting your journey in life?
Fight harder. Fight harder for what I really wanted. Because at the end of the day, it's where I've ended up. It just took me a lot longer to get here than it needed to.
You enjoyed the journey, though.
Enjoy the journey, absolutely. And I enjoyed my journey. I just don't think it had to, no one follows a straight path for the purpose in their life. But mine could have possibly had fewer detours.
There you go. You still made it in the end, though.
Still made it.
Thank you for sharing your story and including the detours on this show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Signing off, guys. We'll see you again soon.
Have a great one.